"There seems to be a mistake, sir. We need you to move to accommodate our VIP passenger," Jessica, the flight attendant, said, her tone condescending despite the polite words. "This seat is reserved for only our platinum members. You don't belong and can't sit here." Behind her stood Karen Wickfield, an elegantly dressed white woman tapping her designer watch impatiently. Her eyes darted between Marcus, the black man, in the seat he occupied, C2A, which she clearly considered her rightful place. "I always sit there. It's practically my seat," she muttered just loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. Marcus looked up, confusion crossing his face. He had done everything right. Booked early, paid in full, arrived on time. He was a platinum member, yet, somehow, his presence in the seat was being framed as a problem that needed solving. Marcus calmly reached for his wallet and produced his platinum member card. "I am a platinum member," he replied evenly, "and this is my assigned seat." The flight attendant's smile tightened. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, quickly replaced by determination. "I understand, sir, but this particular seat is typically reserved for a better customer," pointing to Karen Whitfield, "our regular platinum member who flies with us." Frequently, the implication was clear, regardless of his status. Marcus didn't belong in that seat. Passengers began to notice phones slowly emerged. The whispers started. What the flight crew didn't know was that this simple act of discrimination would change everything in the next few hours. Not just for them, but for the entire airline, because the person they underestimated held their fate in his hands. This story is the best example of when karma arrives with a first-class ticket of its own. Have you ever been treated unfairly, simply because of how you looked? Drop your experiences in the comments below, and if you stand against prejudice and injustice being served, hit that subscribe button right now and type "justice" and where you're watching from in the comments section. Marcus wasn't just any passenger at 42. He was the founder and CEO of Right Tech Solutions, a $2.8 billion AI company specializing in customer service technology. His software helped companies identify and eliminate bias in their customer interactions, which is ironic considering what was about to unfold. But Marcus's story began long before his success. Growing up in South Chicago, he taught himself to code at just 11 years old on a secondhand computer. While other kids played video games, Marcus built them, creating simple programs that eventually evolved into complex algorithms. His path wasn't easy. When Marcus was 16, his father was killed in an attack that shook his community. Standing at his father's grave, young Marcus made a promise that would define his life and make people see each other as human beings. First, that promise fueled 2 decades of relentless work. Starting his company in a tiny apartment, Marcus is coded for 18 hours a day, while working odd jobs to pay rent. Earlier that day, at the airport, security cameras captured Marcus helping an elderly woman struggling with her luggage, patiently assisting her to find her gate. He held doors open for strangers, thanked every service worker by name, and tipped generously at the airport cafe. Not because he was being watched, but because that's who Marcus Richardson was. Humble despite his success, kind despite his power. Now he was traveling to deliver the keynote address at the Global Ethics and Technology Conference. As Marcus settled into his first-class seat, a seat he had specifically chosen for its leg room so he could work during the flight, he chose to fly with Skylux Airlines because it was the epitome of luxury air travel, where first-class tickets cost more than some people's monthly rent. Their platinum MERS enjoyed heated towels, champagne service, and seats that reclined into full beds. But behind this polished exterior, Skylux was desperately trying to modernize their booking systems. Were outdated, their customer service rankings had slipped, and they were eagerly pursuing a partnership with a major tech company to revolutionize their operations. They needed this deal badly. What the Skylux crew didn't realize was that sitting in seat 2A was the CEO of the very company they hoped would save them. Flight attendant Jessica Miller had been with Skylux for 8 years. She prided herself on knowing the preferences of regular first-class passengers. She always made sure Karen Wickfield got her preferred seat 2A, the one currently occupied by Marcus. Jessica had bills to pay and knew that Karen's generous tips helped make her mortgage. "Each month, sir, we have a platinum member who always sits in this particular seat," Jessica said, leaning down toward Marcus. "Would you mind moving to another class seat?" Her tone was polite, but carried an undercurrent of expectation. the kind that assumed compliance was the only acceptable response. Marcus looked up from his tablet, momentarily confused. He reached for his boarding pass and showed it to Jessica. "I'm sorry, but this is my assigned seat," he explained calmly. "I'm also a Platinum member." Karen Whitfield stood in the aisle, making no attempt to hide her annoyance. Other passengers could clearly hear her when she said, "I always sit there on this route. It's practically my seat." The situation was quickly becoming uncomfortable. Several passengers were now watching the interaction unfold. Jessica shifted her weight from one foot to another, glancing nervously between Marcus and Karen. "Sir, perhaps you'd be more comfortable." In another section, Jessica suggested her implication clear. She wasn't offering him another first-class seat. Marcus remained composed. "Not thank you," he replied firmly. "I've selected this seat specifically for the legroom, as I need to work during the flight." Jessica's smile tightened. She nodded curtly and walked toward the front of the cabin, where she occasionally glanced back at Marcus. What happened next was secretly caught on camera by a passenger across the aisle. Karen stepped forward, seemingly to put her bag in an overhead compartment. As she did, she slipped a folded stack of notes into Jessica's pocket. With practiced discretion, "I appreciate your help with this situation," Karen whispered just loudly enough for the nearby passengers to hear. Jessica's face flushed as he accepted the money. In that moment, a simple seating dispute transformed into something far more sinister, a bribe to discriminate against a passenger based on appearance. The atmosphere in the first-class cabin had shifted. Trevor, the cabin supervisor, approached Marcus's seat with the confident stride of someone accustomed to having his authority unquestioned. His posture was rigid, his expression fixed in what he likely believed was professionalism. "Sir, we need you to move to accommodate our VIP passenger," Trevor announced loud enough for nearby passengers to hear. His tone made it clear this wasn't a request, but a command. Marcus looked up from his tablet again, his expression calm but his eyes revealing a weary familiarity with such encounters. "I've shown my boarding pass and Platinum status," Marcus replied evenly. "This is my signed seat." Trevor's face tightened. A muscle twitched near his jaw as he leaned in slightly, his voice taking on a condescending tone that made several nearby passengers shift uncomfortably in their seats. "Perhaps you're unfamiliar with how things work on this airline," Trevor said, emphasizing each word as if speaking to a child. "We accommodate worthy customers who have specific preferences by now." The confrontation had captured the attention of nearly everyone in the first-class cabin. A businesswoman across the aisle discreetly angled his phone toward the interaction, openly recording the escalating situation. Within hours, these videos would be viewed millions of times online. Karen remained standing in the aisle, her designer handbag clutched against her chest, her impatience becoming increasingly theatrical. She checked her watch dramatically before letting out an exaggerated sigh that echoed through the cabin. "I have an important meeting right after landing," she announced, to no one in particular. "I need my usual seat." "This is beyond ridiculous," the other passengers' expressions told the real story. "You should get out of the seat. He doesn't even look like someone that can afford it anyway," one of them said. Trevor, emboldened by Karen's performance, leaned down closer to Marcus. His voice dropped to a near whisper, but in the tense quiet of the cabin, his words were still audible to those nearby. "Sir, we can do this the easy way, or we can make this difficult. Your choice." The threat hung in the air, a moment stretched into seconds as passengers held their breath waiting for Marcus's response. Many people might have yielded at this point, the pressure of public confrontation, the implicit threat, the desire to avoid further escalation. But Marcus Richardson wasn't most people. His calm never wavered as he looked Trevor directly in the eyes. "I'm not moving," he stated firmly. "This is my seat." 6 simple words delivered, without anger or aggression but with absolute certainty. Trevor's face flushed red. This wasn't going according to plan. He straightened up, adjusted his uniform tie, and without another word walked briskly toward the front of the cabin. He picked up the service phone, his back to the passengers, but his agitated gestures were visible to all. The lines had been drawn. What should have been a routine flight was about to become something none of the people involved would ever forget. The tension in the cabin was palpable. As Trevor spoke urgently into the service phone, passengers exchanged glances. some typing furiously on their phones, others watching with undisguised interest. Marcus had returned to reviewing his presentation, his calm exterior revealing nothing what must have been going through his mind. 5 minutes passed before the cockpit door opened. Captain James Reynolds emerged, his weathered face set in a professional mask as he followed Trevor down the